state. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. So, that was my little introduction to you, and you're kind of getting to know what my show is about. I talk to interesting Canadians across the country. Some of them are outside of the country. Some of them are still in the country. Right now, you're in Ontario for
That's
my
accurate.
Albertan viewers.
Oh, you have Albertan viewers. Wow.
I'm in Alberta. I work out here.
Oh, what? I thought you were in Toronto.
No, no.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay.
I've given up on Toronto, man. It's the rat race is too heavy for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Alberta, it's nice. It's just oil. You don't have to worry about it.
Whoa. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yep.
Uh, Tell me a little bit about yourself, Daniel. Should I call you Danny or Daniel?
Daniel's fine.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
What do you do, man?
What do I do? Depends on the context. Like as a career?
Maybe more of like, yeah, what'd you do today?
What did I do today? Today I was recovering from Las Vegas mostly. So, yeah, I arrived at like 7:30 this morning on a plane, and then drove home and slept. So that's my net accomplishment for the day.
So you were out partying the last week?
Yes, yeah, that was pretty good.
Kind of coming down from, I guess you got relaxing to go to Vegas, right? I don't know if Vegas is relaxing. Was it relaxing?
I mean, sure, I think so. It's probably less relaxing than like the Caribbean or something.
Yeah.
Just like lazing around on a beach, but instead we're like staying up till like 6 a.m. in some club or something. It's a
So
slightly more energy required.
yeah. So I guess I don't know. Is that relaxing for you?
It was interesting.
Have you been to Vegas before?
Yeah, once before.
Oh, okay. And it depends on who you go with too, like the crew that you go with.
Yeah, we went with the adventurous crew this time, so it was we did some different things.
Who recruited you?
Who recruited me for Vegas?
Yeah.
Eric.
He's kind of like a local in Vegas. He kind of goes quite
I
a bit.
think it's pretty much his home now.
Yeah. Well, before you went off to Vegas, what was it like at work, and what were you doing before then? And what do you do? I don't even know, like, really. I kind of did some research, actually. Oh, actually, I did a bit of research. I went through your Facebook
Yeah,
and kind of creeped you a bit.
yeah. I sell real estate primarily as my income source. So
You went to
I
school for
do
real
it.
estate?
No. You don't need to be educated to be a realtor at all.
Hmm.
You just like you pass some simple exams. Like the hardest thing is like some mortgage financing questions. It's not particularly difficult content.
So you, from what I can tell, you didn't take the regular route. Like you went to school for something else, and then you ended up doing a career that's different from what you, because you said you
Yeah,
were.
I started out in computer science, and then I uh, uh, was doing professional video gaming, and then which is not a typical career. And then I did some retail sales, and then some real estate sales. Yeah.
Interesting. You are from Ayr, Ontario, correct?
Yeah. Small town.
Actually, Rick Mercer put that city on the map, or that town on the map. I don't know if you've seen
I
that
wasn't
segment.
aware of this. What? Really?
I was doing some research. Rick Mercer did this firework firework episode segment where like he went to Ayr, and then he set up all the fireworks, and had the whole city come together and watch it. It was like part of a
Whoa. How
celebration.
many years ago is this? Like 15, 20 years ago?
2011.
Oh, 2011. Okay. I
And I
was
think
gonna
that,
say.
and it was like at the time when like a new community center was being built in your little town.
Yeah. We got a new arena there. Get some.
Yeah. So I did a bit of research on that. What is what
Like
was it like?
professional stalker here. It's good.
Sorry?
Professional stalker.
Oh yeah, I know. It was,
I think they call that journalism, though, so that's fine.
you
Can I
ended up.
use that when I'm like on Tinder dates? Can I say I'm just a journalist, so I didn't really stalk you? It's fine. Like I think that works, right? Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe yeah. I've
Yeah.
different strategies. We could talk about that if you want.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, back to your whole growing up process. Like this, you started from computer science. Like, how did you? Was that part of the whole like area? Because I know that Aaron, Cambridge, and Waterloo and Kitchener are on the same area, and I know that during when we were growing up, BlackBerry had a big presence in the area. So like going through school, that's one of my questions I wanted to ask you was that do you find that growing up your education was geared towards what was the strong
No,
industry that was in your area. So
not,
BlackBerry.
no. I mean, I went to high school in Cambridge, which is like a super blue collar town. It's in the Tri-Cities, but it's very blue collar. So there was no real emphasis towards tech. I mean, there were academic kids like myself, and they ended up in tech, but there was a lot of like, auto body class and shit like that. So
Why did you end up going to Cambridge for high school?
that's just proximity.
Uh,
Yeah, it wasn't some special location. It's just the nearest school.
how far is Air to Cambridge?
So the school was like 15 minutes away.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then, when you were in Cambridge, a lot of your friends growing up were like sort of mixed, like when they were gonna think of what they, because I think we're around the same age.
I think so.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm like 55, so.
Yeah. Okay. 55. You look a little younger than that. Actually, you kind of look like you just graduated to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Just graduated?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
look, you look young, man. You look,
So is that because I'm stupid or because I look young?
you look young.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then I want to know. So in Waterloo, when I went there, I know that there were a lot of your friends that like part of that circle of friends being in computer engineering. Was it sort of like a tight knit exclusive group, or was it sort of like you got to meet other people from different departments like humanities and the arts and other like, sciences and all that after you got out?
Um, that's a good question. I was very antisocial at that age, and so I pretty much only knew people from my program, I would say. Yeah, like people in my program in my residence, like it's like that isolation. So, um, yeah, that's about it.
Did
But
you
like, had I been a more social kid, probably for sure I would have known like all the other kids in like chemistry or physics or like gone to the events and things like that. But I just played Warcraft.
Do you think
That's
you chose Waterloo because of proximity, or you chose it because of the program?
Well, so I wanted to be a civil engineer at some point. I built this really cool bridge in grade 7. Like we had this contest where we had to see how much like weight we could like hold on a bridge. Yeah, that we built out of popsicle sticks, and I crushed it. And like I was just like a natural. I was like, this makes. I didn't like read up on like the right angles. I just like was like this seems like it would work, and it did. And the only kid I lost to was the one who had her dad build it, and her dad was a civil engineer. So I figured that you know this was my destiny, at that point. And then on like so I applied to like 3 different schools around here. Proximity did play a factor for civil engineering. And then on a whim, because I really liked my coding class, I was like, why don't I also apply to Waterloo for coding as well as civil engineering for comp sci? And so then that's what I did. And it turns out they all accepted me, and I decided to choose computer science for no real reason other than I liked video games. That was probably what got me into it.
From that assignment where you had to build the bridge, I would still consider that quite hands-on. And when did you think you started moving from hands-on towards sort of like more theoretical, like coding and doing more things on the computer?
Uh, so I actually think I should have went. If I had went one more step theoretical, I think I still would be taking the academic path. So what I probably should have done is like pure math or something like that.
Hmm.
Like or if I had realized I could have went and did like masters or a PhD in like studying algorithms or something like that. Like that would have been interesting. So I've always liked that theoretical thinking. Like my arithmetic skills were decent. Like I was still a mathematician in high school and such like that. But like my real skill was like the deeper thinking questions. Like that was where I was atypical.
Kind of interesting that you're in a field where you're now more in sales.
Where now I have to think nothing. There's zero thought. I shouldn't say zero thought. Like, I mean, there's like an understanding of human beings, which the complexity there is infinite. However, there are not like complex mathematical problems for sure. Like I mean, maybe spreadsheeting, like some investment cash flow or something like that. It's about as complex as it gets.
Do you think you were raised with that, like, what, I guess your parents raised you to think that way in a certain way, or do you think you just kind of developed it on your own? Because I would argue that not a
What
lot of
way?
people would think
You
about
mean a
going.
theoretical way,
Yeah, yeah.
or
I don't think a lot of people would say I would should have went into pure math or even decide to go to pure math. There's some feedback going on, by the way.
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
Just move the microphone closer.
there
Is
we
that
go.
better?
That was great. Thanks.
Yeah. Um. Hmm.
Yeah. Do you think like it was sort of you found it on your own, or did you think that some way there was some design on pushing you down that way and thinking that way? Maybe some sort of
So I
influence that
was.
you had in life.
I don't know. That's a tough question. I
I'm
mean,
I'm in the arts, man. I'm not a math guy.
right,
So
right.
so I'm trying to understand where.
You're like, why would somebody do something so masochistic? Right. I understand.
Sure.
So that's tough to say. I mean, there's probably some genetics at play. Like my dad was a strong mathematician, but he's a farmer, right? So like, there's probably some genetics there. Um, yeah. I mean, like so something like proofs, like something you would do in pure math is like proving theorems, things like that. You would It requires some degree of like outside the box thinking. Whereas maybe coding, which it does require some outside the box thinking, it's more kind of like find the material and then implement the material. It's a little bit closer to industry level. So so I guess probably the fact that I was kind of left to like full autonomy as a kid may have increased my predisposition for like innovating and like thinking outside the box, because I just like, here, go, because it was a country lifestyle. You just like
Well, who'd you
do
talk
whatever.
math with?
Well, so that's the thing. Like that's why I'm saying there's some genetic component.
Oh,
Clearly,
right, right,
like
right.
there was no math at all. Like my dad was a mathematician, like intelligently, but he did not have formal training at all. He didn't even graduate high school,
Wow.
right? But he's just a smart dude.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a large genetic component, no question. But to amplify that, maybe the fact that I had that country lifestyle kind of let me think in a slightly different way than I would have if I was in a more kind of safe environment. So like that could be the case, but this is pure speculation.
Right,
I
right.
have no real clue.
And so then with the introduction to the internet and how you discovered, I don't know, video gaming and the crazy like level of you can connect with so many different people that you've never met before. Do you think that kind of changed the trip? Like,
Oh man, that was a trip.
yeah, because you're from a smaller town in Ontario, and your local friends would be a
Well,
little
even going
smaller
to
too.
Waterloo, like, so there was only white people. I only knew white people
Right,
my entire childhood.
right.
Like, yeah, there was like, okay, I don't even think I fully comprehended like what non-white people were, because I think there was a non-white person in my high school, and I didn't even consider them another ethnicity.
So it was a cultural shock.
Yeah, they were just like a person with a tan to me.
Mm,
Like I didn't really understand it fully.
mm.
And then I went to Waterloo, and I said some outlandish things out of pure ignorance, I'm sure. And you know, which we will not delve into. But let's just say I received an education very quickly in other cultures, and it was pretty interesting. It was a very, very big shock. Yeah.
Do you think the internet helps keep us informed about the crazy variegated life that we live in? The so many different types of culture. Like I don't know, because I feel like in Ontario. Oh, sorry. From where I am, like Mississauga, we grew up with all different types of people, like ethnicities and
Right. Sorry. Where did you grow up in Toronto? So I just
I
missed
grew up
that.
in Mississauga.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's very
So,
multicultural.
but I would argue that in Mississauga we don't get the sort of like people from agricultural backgrounds. So like
No,
people in the country, we don't
no.
get that. So we grow up thinking that the reality that we live in is the way we do, right? So
Right. So even like let's just say, for example, the white people are not the same white people that I grew up with.
mhm.
Like it's country
Right, right.
Canadians versus city Canadians, right? Like it's like a whole different background.
Yeah. City and rural are very different. And
Oh,
so you've chosen to stay in a more rural environment, correct?
Well, I mean, I'm in a major city now, but
Oh,
like,
oh,
it's yeah.
you where do you live now?
I live in KW, so it's just like I mean, I shouldn't say major compared to Toronto, but like
Oh, you live in Kitchener.
city. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay, okay.
I stay near Waterloo there, so that's good. Yeah, so I work like I live and work around here, and I mean I go all over Toronto as well. So I do go about an hour in radius for real estate.
Did your
Uh,
friends join you into university? Did your best friends go to university with you?
what do you mean?
Uh,
No, actually, nobody that I knew from high school did I know in university at all. It's complete tie cut. Like there was nobody from my country high school that, and some of them did go, but they were not in my program. So again, I didn't associate at all.
oh, okay, they must have chose different paths. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, some of them, like if they were in biology or something, I would have not even known. So,
coming from your family, like you said, your dad never graduated high school, and then when you went to university, was it a big deal?
I didn't feel so. My family did not go to the only person in my extended family, my uncle had went to university. Literally nobody else had, and they're big families. Um, but my mom was smart enough to know to encourage us to go that path, despite not having went it herself.
Hmm.
So it was good. Yeah. So like myself and my two sisters all have post-secondary education now.
Oh,
So it's
nice,
fine.
nice, nice, nice. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about your university experience and the shock that we were talking about. Not only was there now you're seeing a lot of different types of people from the city and from other parts of the country. Did you know that Well, at the time, did you think that Waterloo was a prestigious engineering school? That a lot of that the Canada was
I
very
don't
proud
think
of.
so. I don't think I really understood that
Hmm.
at all. No. I was just literally just like, yeah, they have what I want. I'll go here.
Yeah.
Like if I had lived in Alberta, I'm sure I'd go to like University of Alberta for engineering.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's an interesting point, man. Like that just shows that there's a lot of kids who are going into universities and colleges and choosing post secondary without really knowing.
I think well, oh my God, how ignorant is the average 17-year-old? Like it's insane.
Yeah.
Like to expect them to have like thought at a higher level like that is like or a longer term. Longer term in general is just not good at that age. That's
It's
just
it's a
it
pretty big
turns out scientifically like we haven't fully developed. Uh,
pretty big money grab if anything. But I guess you did find a nice uh I guess the res environment and the res experience was a pretty positive one for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that echoes many other people's sentiments. It's like, you should live on campus the first year, make the friendships, things like that. I think many people would echo that.
Do you think your friends are still there? Like the friends that you made in university carry forth into your like your adult life, I guess. Adult life.
I mean, not in my regular adult life because, they all moved on to other cities. But yeah, I still keep in touch with a lot of them, definitely. I mean, you know, I just went to Vegas with them, so.
Nice. Yeah, Eric actually told me about it because we aren't really we're just acquaintances, right? And that's an interesting dynamic because this is the first time I'm having someone that I don't really know well. I mean, actually, I had another guest on where we've never met before, but we've talked a bit. But with you, I've never really had a long conversation with. So this is an interesting
Sure.
episode for me as well.
Make it who
Um,
knows.
all right, so I think what else did I write for some ideas here for our conversation? We talked about being in the major city. Being in a city or a little town that's in between all the cities. Did you ever have opportunities to go out to London, Ontario? Did you have opportunities to go out to Hamilton and all these
As a
surrounding?
kid?
Yeah.
No, we didn't do any of that. No, never. I I never went to Toronto one time before the age of like 21,
Wow.
and we only lived an hour away. You would just never. What? It would be crazy. My mom is deathly afraid of driving anywhere near Toronto.
Hmm.
Right? Like, my dad would do it for trucking, but like I didn't go on trips. And yeah, and like London, well, who would go there? You know, like that's just a dumb decision. And like, but I do know like all of the small towns because like we did travel hockey and stuff like that, and so we'd go, and there were like big small town rivalries. Like this was a big deal.
You play sports
Like,
growing up?
oh yeah,
What'd you play?
hockey, soccer.
Mm,
Those are the main two,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
guess. Then in high school, I did like track and football and stuff like that too.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good.
it's so funny because people think that Ontario is just like one city center, Toronto or Ottawa, and they don't really think about everywhere else. And then you think about like,
I mean, statistically, they're right,
uh,
but
air is how long of a drive to Toronto? Probably like a 3-4 hour drive. 3 hour, 3-4 hour.
no. Air is close to Kitchener. So Air is only like an hour and 15 minutes out from Toronto.
An hour and 15 minutes from Toronto, and having
And
not.
I never went there.
Well, like that's a huge. That's very interesting.
Sup, how much do you live? What's up, bro? You know?
Yeah, that's good. You got some fans, man.
I got some bicep fans. That's good.
So now, what about now? Do you find that you travel a little bit more? Dan?
Um, yeah, I do. I mean, now that I have disposable income, you know.
Do you care for any of these other cities like London, like you used to care for? London and Hamilton and Toronto? What is
The only reason that I go to non-Toronto cities is for dating, typically. Like, there's no other real motivation to go to those cities.
they're
Like
far.
what? Well, I mean, like, so Hamilton and London are about an hour each, or I could go to Toronto for the same hour of investment. Objectively better if I'm going to visit anywhere, right? And so I go to Toronto like all the time. It's like way better.
One of the episodes we talked about online dating and the fact that on certain apps you can set the location of where you are, and then
Okay.
and then you can kind of date that way. So
Swipe
I live in a rural community here in Alberta, and it was really hard for me to date for a little while, and I
Uh-huh.
had to do some traveling, 2 hour drives to go on a date.
That's rough.
It,
Yeah.
it is, especially if you have limited options in the.
Now what do you? Now you were in. Oh, so you're in rural Alberta. You're
I
saying.
live in a town about 15,000 people.
Oh, okay. So like it's a town still. It's
Town,
got some
city.
It's got a Tim Hortons.
It's got two.
Two. Oh, that's a metropolitan area.
Yeah.
My town just got its first Tim Hortons like 3 years ago.
Oh wow.
That's how you know you've made it in Ontario. That's it. That's we're on the map.
On a more serious note, do you think that small towns in Ontario get a bad rap because these major metropolises take all that attention, or do you even care?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, like, I think the big city folk think the country folk are idiots, and the country folk think the big city folks are idiots. I think that's how it always is.
Yeah.
But that's. I think you can say that about any lack of perspective situation, right? Race, country, doesn't matter. Like, if you don't have the perspective, you always think the other guy's an idiot. It's
True.
just human nature, right? Now, the more intelligent people tend to have perspective and or try to gain perspective, or at least obey, or not obey, but at least understand their own ignorance, if nothing else, right? So, but the masses for sure, it's just that's how things like racism happen, right?
So when you meet new people, what are you looking for? Are you looking for people that are more open-minded, or are you looking obviously that sounds like a stupid question.
More open, yeah. I mean, sure, I'm pretty liberal.
Mm.
So I probably don't get along in an intimate level with somebody, or a more personal level with somebody who's much more conservative. Probably not, right? We're not gonna have that much. We could play some board games together, But as soon as conversation starts to get into any sort of niche life areas, be careful, right? That's yeah.
So now that you're working and with a career, what's it like to be in the field of real estate?
The field of real estate.
Because you must have bounced. This is probably you've had multiple careers. Because I kind of you used to be in furniture as well.
Yeah. That was my first kind of sales job, I guess.
Yeah,
Actually, before that, I sold knives door to door. Before that, was some good shit.
How did you transition from somewhat of an introverted academic, background to something so it requires generally an extroverted personality,
Delusional amounts of confidence. That would be how I'd sum that. So I was basically I'm not making enough money as a pro gamer. I'm making 15, maybe 20K a year if I'm lucky, and it's just not cutting it, right? And then hopefully this isn't broadcast to the government. I don't think it reported most of that. But
you quit computer science to be a pro gamer?
Yes, exactly.
Dude, that's quite bold.
Yeah, well, I sometimes, as a young person, you make dumb decisions or bold decisions, I guess.
And
I don't
interestingly,
know if it was bold or if it was, again, delusionally confident. That was,
and your parents obviously gave you the autonomy to do decisions, make decisions like that.
um, sure, yeah, sure they did. They're very supportive of that career.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, they loved it.
Take me through
So,
that. Take me through that.
well, so I quit, and then I was like,
Oh, you just quit? Like you just like, okay, hey guys, I'm done.
so I strategically quit. So I never told the university I wasn't coming back. I just didn't enroll. And the term that I like dove out on, I purposefully so what did I do? I withdrew from 3 and I failed 2 because that was the perfect combination that allowed me to not technically be out of the program
Okay.
so that I could come back. And years later, I did actually go back for a semester and then quit again, but that's not the point.
Hmm.
Anyway.
Brilliant.
So yeah, so then I'm like, yeah, I didn't get a work term job this term, Mom. I had not told her that I failed at all, and like was dropping out. I just said that like my goal was to do that and then still get a work term job, like just to make some extra money in the meantime. Right?
Oh, right, because in Waterloo they offer you this
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
it was
like.
co-op. So I could have still got a co-op in theory,
Some people
but
don't
like,
know what co-op actually means. Like they don't realize like if you go into university, you can do 6 months of schooling, or how does it work? You split your academic semester in half.
so you do every other semester kind of. So you do 4 months on, 4 months off, 4 months on, and you just do it the full year, right? So you don't have like a summer holidays. You're just going on and off.
Would you
So
work?
it's a 5 year. It turns a 4 year program into a 5 year program, basically. Right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, or 4 years, 8 months.
You
Or
must have
whatever.
been unhappy with your placements.
Yeah. I mean, so the issue was that I was like, not good, I think is what they would say. And so like when you're not good, then they don't hire you. I think
Oh.
that's how that works.
Okay.
It's basically what happened. Yeah.
You're selling
I
yourself
was
short, man. I don't know if
I
that's
was
the
not
case.
a prodigy in programming, or at least not enough so to be able to get by putting exactly zero effort in.
Yeah.
So there was a lack of, we'll call it, conscientiousness there.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I got the shitty jobs, and it turns out I didn't like them.
Hmm.
I was doing like database programming, but he wouldn't let me do anything except for like he would only let me program the database in Microsoft Access. It wasn't like I could do like some Oracle or something fancy, or even try to learn something cool. No, he was only Access database. That's how he wanted to set everything up.
Why didn't
Which
he?
is,
Why didn't he let you do
well,
anything?
because he doesn't have the experience to be able to supervise somebody.
And that's under the terms and conditions of this.
Well, that was, I mean, he hired me. That's it. He hired me, right? So then, like, and there was no like tech lead that I could learn from, really. Like, it was just him, and he's like some 60-year-old guy, and the only thing he knows is Microsoft Access,
Oh man.
and not even that well. So, like, you
And
know,
were you the only intern working for him, or did you have a couple with him?
no, it was just me.
Oh.
Everybody else was just like some laborer, like a factory laborer.
Oh.
There was no. I had a like my job was like I was in like the back like utility room, and like by like the plumbing and the electrical of for this factory, and they just like set up a computer in there, and they made the desk. It was a company that produced glass, and they made the desk just out of 3 pieces of glass from the fact. Like they put zero effort into this, and I don't even know how I got the internet down there, to be honest.
There's a couple. You're very shady.
It's super shady, man. But because I suck, that's the job I get, okay? That's how that works. You see? If I was like, ambitious and I'd been like studying all this like and like learning and applying and like having other experience, I probably would have, got some better jobs.
Got it.
For example, I remember like, some of my classmates got jobs at like Open Text or something like that, Shady attracts shady, exactly. See, this person understands, That's it. I'm always throwing shade. Wait, that's different. Okay.
You got a bad taste in your mouth from the program, so you decided that, look, I'm going to temporarily put this academic career on hold. I'm going to try and pursue something that I enjoy, which was pro gaming.
I was pretty good at that, yeah. So I thought, let's just do it. Let's see what happens. And so that's what I did.
What were your, like, what was your how did you get involved with that? Like, what was your sort of, like, man that got you into it? Like, what connected you? Did you have a team, or were you gonna go solo? Because I remember there was this whole era of like,
Yeah, you had to get onto it. Like you had to do like team for a lot of it, but there was also solo tournaments as well. There was two different venues for like Warcraft 3. Um, I mean, I just got good at it, and then that was like if you're really good at something, even if you like don't try to put yourself out there, people will find you,
yeah, that's interesting.
right?
Yeah.
Like once you reach a certain level, people just find you. And I was not like a networker or like I wasn't like there were people that did like what's called VODs, what was it, video on demand, like replay analysis and stuff like that. And they would be players that I was way better than these players, but these players were super popular because they like had a personality and the ability to network and grow an audience and things like that. But this was in the infancy, like nobody was making money at this shit yet.
Right. Now think about it now with the advent of Twitch TV, and now you have all these people kind of just buying a PC and then just throwing themselves on, and if you're really good, you get viewers. Like imagine if you
Right. So like as a Twitch gamer, you have like two basic like avenues. You have like be amazing or have a personality. And the best ones will have a combination of both, but that's pretty rare, right?
yeah.
I can think of some Dota players that would qualify for this, right? So for like, yeah, you have to have some sort of value you're offering the audience, right? So some people have like a really good personality, some people are really hot, some people are really good at the game. It depends, right? But like you have to have something to offer.
So what happened during your whole when you decided to put your academics on hold? What happened then?
My academics on hold.
You live? Where would you live? Did you stop living on
Yeah,
campus?
so I went. I ended up going back home for about 2 months, and my mom's like, "Yeah, so get a job, or I cut off the internet." And I was like, "Yeah, totally. Yeah, don't worry about it. I got this." And so then she cut off the internet, and I moved out the next day. So called her bluff. That's how
Wow.
that works. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is like before cell phones. I like just left, and like I told her an address, but she had no way of contacting me at all. Oh, and the worst was I left as my sister was just coming home from school or something. I can't remember. And my sister was mad because I like stole her like day, because like I left, right? Because she's home and everybody's there to visit her, and I just fucking leave. And then everybody's like, "Where did Dan go? What the hell's going on?" Yeah.
Stole her thunder, man. You stole her
I
return
did. I stole
thunder.
the thunder. It was unintentional. I didn't even realize she was coming home. I wasn't involved in this stuff.
Right.
I was just playing video games. I didn't have time for this shit.
Did you find relative success doing what you did?
Relative. Yeah. I mean, for the time, I did quite well. Like, I think
And what does
if
success
I,
mean
if,
during
if I
that time?
was as good at a game now as I was then, I would make a pretty decent wage. But the money was not in it. The money was in it only if you were like literally the best in the world
Oh,
at that time, and I wasn't quite that good.
wow.
So, I mean, I was like top 50, top 20 depending on the day, but that's not enough to make good money at that time.
And how long did you do that for?
A few years.
A few years.
Yeah.
And then so what happened? What that
I ended up
transition?
doing World of Warcraft at some point, which was not a great income stream, but I ended up rating in like the #1 guild in the US for quite a while, which was pretty fun.
Wow. Yeah, that's a whole nother. Actually,
That one is where my life really went off the rails. Yeah, that was the one that caused me to quit gaming, actually.
I had a friend that I knew who had logged 8 months worth of game time on WoW, like 8 months worth of playing time on that.
Oh yeah, I had 500 days played.
Wow.
500 days played in like 2.5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
It was serious, and I was playing Dota on the side.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive.
I don't think impressive is the correct word, but I appreciate
There must, but I guess there must be a level of like dedication, or not even like, would you call it an addiction, or what would you call that?
100% it's an addiction. There's no question.
You don't seem like a guy that gets easily addicted to.
Well, yeah, I do definitely.
No, because from this conversation, and I'm kind of gauging you now, and like Daniel, you seem to be very like your time is important. You don't waste time on things that aren't gonna matter much. Like you're very calculated. It seems like you're very calculated. You come from that kind of background too. That I find it hard to believe, you know. So
Well, I mean, my prefrontal cortex was not fully formed at that time.
okay, all right, sounds
I
good.
think that might explain it.
All right, so let's move on. So when did you transition to the real world?
The real world. When yeah, exactly. I mean that. So I guess I've been doing real estate now for 7 years, and I was doing retail for another 2 years before that. So I guess like 9 years now since I've been transitioning back to reality.
Hmm.
Yeah. I shouldn't. It wasn't like a stark, like immediate thing. Like I still played video games many hours. I mean, I've logged, 8,000 games of Dota 2 since then. So that's still a lot of time. So that's a lot. But yeah, it was a slow transition back into reality. It's good.
Why?
And lots of good things came from it.
Why sales? Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Why sales? Why? That's a good question. It was coincidence, really. So I was like, I have no money. What do I do? So I applied to just everything. I didn't know. I didn't have. I didn't finish my degree. I had no real anything. I was like, what the fuck do? I got to do something. So I just applied to stuff. Like I think I was accepted to like 3 or 4 different jobs at the same time, and I just chose the one that seemed to be most lucrative. I think like one of them was like I was gonna be like a bus boy, like or just something stupid like that. And then this job was like I went into the interview and they asked me if I had retail experience. I was like, yeah, absolutely. But it was just ignorance I said that out of because like I worked at a gas station. That's not retail. I didn't understand. I was like, it sold things.
Yes,
so I was like, that's retail. I have the experience.
What do you mean? You're selling gas. You're
Yeah. But I'm not getting a commission on the gas.
Okay.
And so, yeah. So it was some combination of ignorance and confidence. And I had no skills for this job at the time. At all. I don't know how I went in the interview and she's telling me what it is. And I showed up. I tried to dress up. I wore like some super tattered like khakis and like a rugby shirt because I had a collar on. So I was like, yeah, this is how you dress for an interview. Fuck yeah. And and then I went in and she was like, so yeah, so I think that what happens in like this retail sales environment, this is because it's commission, like the furniture, and so they like it's pretty high turnover, right? Because like if you don't sell stuff, you don't make money. That's exactly, you see? Yeah, this guy's got it.
Ignorance and confidence is the entrepreneur's cocktail.
It turns out, yeah. And so I went in, and she's so they try to like scare you off a little bit. Basically, the whole interview is her trying to convince you not to do it, and then if you make it through, I think that you just get hired. I think that's how that works.
You picked that up in the mid-interview?
No, I'm just retro-analyzing it. I
Oh.
just was like responding to the questions
Okay.
and like delusionally confident again. And so she was like, she said something like, if you basically if you don't, I asked some stuff about wages or stuff. She goes, well, it's performance based. And like, essentially there's, if you perform poorly, you will get fired. Like, and I said, so what is poor performance? And she goes, well, if you earn less than like 40K a year, you'll probably get fired. And at that time, I was like, that sounds like good. Yeah. Yeah. So that all I have to do is not be the shittiest guy here, and I'm gonna make 40K. Fuck yeah! Like that was what I was thinking at the time.
Nice.
This was like doubling my money. And so I was like, oh yeah, no problem. Like completely unfazed.
But you
because
didn't
in
really
my head,
know.
well, because in my head I'm like, okay, like these chumps, like I can be at least average at anything I put even a mild amount of effort in. This is my cockiness, right? I'm like, I put even a little bit of effort. At least I'm gonna be at the 50% line, right? Like that's easy. So like I'm not gonna get failed out. Anyway, I had a lot to learn. So I almost got fired after 3 months. I almost didn't make it past my probation, because I sucked. And
What was the nature of the job?
well, selling furniture. And so actually I sold appliances and electronics at first, at Leon's of all places. It was that's so the customers would come in, and if it was your turn, just like a car dealership, right? Then you'd take the customer and you'd interact with them, and ideally if you said
You
the
learn
right
the
things.
product.
Yeah, you'd learn the product, explain the product, and then they buy the product. Hopefully, if it was the right product for them, that's the goal, right? Or if it's the right product for them, and you found the best product and the right price and whatever.
But no, but
So
that's interesting because you'd have to learn about the product. Because how do you sell something if you don't know about it, and how do you and you've not dealt with furniture before, I'd assume.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of studying. Really, I had to study like product specs and like industry things, which was pretty interesting. Well, not interesting, but it was like in depth anyway.
Yeah.
And then they'd have like the reps for each company would come out every once in a while and try to educate you. So you'd pick up some more stuff as you went. And I was pretty tech savvy, so like the TV stuff, like it was starting to be where you could like integrate with the internet and stuff like that. And so my coworkers were kind of getting left in the dust in that respect, right? Because they were just old people. And yeah, so it was pretty interesting. I learned a lot. But like I had no idea. Like so the like regional sales manager comes in on like the first like in our training, our week-long training, and he's like trying to they do like role playing in sales, right? So you like try to like figure out how you talk to people. And he's like, "Okay, greet me." And I was like, "Okay. Cut this shit." I was like, "All right. Yeah, it's nice weather out there, eh?" Like, which is I guess what you'd say if you had nothing else to say, but like this is so bland and boring, right? And then he responds and he's like, "Yeah, nice weather." And then I had nothing after that. I was like, "Fuck, what do I do now?" Like, I was like, "Want to buy a TV?" Like, I don't know what I say now. Like, I don't know what to do at all. So I almost failed after, but by the time the 4th month came around, I had picked it up quite, and I got salesperson of the month, and then the rest is history. So I had a high learning curve, but got there.
What do you think? What do you think really hit it off with the customers? With your like, what did you do that you present? I'm sure after a few sales, you kind of realize I need to amp up a certain part of my personality or amp up an aspect of my sales game in order to encourage more sales. What was it that you noticed got you more?
Oh, he says, "What did I learn?" That's a good question.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things. So like I would probably say if I were a therapist analyzing myself as a teenager, I'd probably say I'm on the spectrum or something like that, right? Like I was like super socially awkward. And so like the way that I looked at the human interaction is interesting. Like it did not come naturally to me at all. But I could analyze it like I could a math problem. Right? I could analyze a person like a math problem. And so what I did is I would just do a lot of like single variable kind of testing on these people. So like at first I would just like I would try to predict, like, because like the first thing you learn very quickly when talking to people, especially in this kind of environment, is that everybody lies, right? Dr. House was right, it turns out. And so like not the salespeople necessarily, they lie too, but they like the customers are like, oh yeah, I'll come back, and like, oh, for sure I'll call you, and like, and like all these little white lies to avoid like rejection essentially, because rejecting people is awkward. And so you learn that people lie, and then so then I was like, oh, this is curious. Everybody, like, you can't count on what people are actually saying. So what do they mean? And so then I was like trying to like read people. Like, what do they mean? What do they really mean when they say this? When they say X and they're making this facial expression, it means Y, or whatever. Like I thought about it like a math problem. And so in order to aid this as well, by the way, I would actually watch films on silent for like an hour a day and try to figure out what was going on in the movie, because actors are like an exaggerated form of what we think an expression is supposed to be like, and turns out watching media is like kind of how we develop our expressions in a certain sense anyway. They're imitating the actors, right? It's kind of this sort of feedback loop. And so I just was trying to figure out what was going on in any given movie or TV show, and that kind of accelerated. I did that for like a year. And that accelerated my like ability to cold read people like a lot. And so that was one part of the equation, is like figure out how to read people really, really, really well, and like pick up on all the nuances of facial expressions. And the other way to do this is like because I have so many like fresh people, I can just like test my assumptions. And so
can you give me like an example of?
So instead of asking them a question, I would just say what I thought they were really thinking, and then they would just. If it was right, they would always agree, and they would be like, because it was this weird thing. I'd be like, so let's say they had like like they were coming, they're like humming and hawing, but I could like tell they like the product, but they're kind of like, oh, I gotta go, or like, my wife has to
Daniel,
be
you know
here.
what? I think I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back for the that fridge. It
Oh,
looks
is there
great.
more?
It looks
What's
great.
that?
The fridge looks great, man. I really like it.
Oh, okay,
I
sorry, I
don't
see what you're doing. Yeah, okay,
I don't know if it's gonna fit, and I think we're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk to my wife when I get home. You know.
right. Okay, so did you see it at Future Shop?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, I mean, this model's at Future Shop, right? And it's for $100 less. Is that what's causing you some pause?
Oh man, you're calling me out on the fact that I've already been to Future Shop. Is that what you're saying? Oh wow, that's
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a natural thing. Of course you would. But I'll tell you what. What if I mean, like, is that the only thing that's preventing you? Like, do you like my company? Do you like me? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You're
Right.
a
You
really
you
nice
like
dude, man.
the same fridge. You like the fridge. It's gonna fit. We found out that it fits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, so if I could match the price, and you like my company and you like me, like, wouldn't it make sense to go with me?
Where do I sign, man?
Perfect. I'll deliver on Thursday. That's it. Right. So like, you just kind of like, you
That's
just
high
kind of
level.
like,
That's high level. In fact, it was so like right away that it took me off guard. It got me off guard. And it
well,
was like,
that's just it, right? It gets you to be in a more emotional
and
state.
I'm gonna try and add on to that. In addition, I don't think there's anything wrong with that because what you're doing is just cutting to the chase.
Exactly. I mean, I'm increasing transparency, which is something you'll find you often don't have in salespeople. So I'm also differentiating myself at the same time, right?
Hmm.
So
And what's the worst that can happen? Is you're gonna offend
what's
somebody?
going to happen is I'm wrong. Like, I'm completely wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
yeah, I
like,
learned something new there, but that was great. Thanks, man. All
well, there
right,
you go.
so you transition from I can kind of see where this is going now. You start from the furniture store. You did that, and you kind of like carved crafted your your metal, and you kind of moved on. And how did you get into real estate? Why real estate?
Bigger things
Hmm.
to sell, you know? I mean, really. I mean, so I had a number of real estate agents that I sold product to, and they were like, "You'd be really good at real estate." And again, my delusional confidence. No, everybody else I talked to that was in retail, they had probably been told similar things, and they had thought about real estate as well, but like they're too pussy.
Mm.
So they would always say things like, "Oh, it's hard. You gotta like find your own leads and stuff." By the way, they're completely right, but at the time I was like, I'll figure it out. It's fine. And so I just enrolled in real estate college and went from there. Yeah.
People think that because you're good at sales, it makes you like I think it assumes that there is some level of design that you have or way to make people do certain things. I don't think that about you. Like with that
Right.
social experiment that you just gave me, you're really just making people realize that things can be simpler than it actually is.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if my sales strategy is the same as everybody else's.
Hmm.
I think that like first I would say that real estate agent sales is much different than like product sales, right? Because you're well, we can get into that later, um, but so yeah, I think that basically the way that I try to act is that I'm trying to help them make a decision that will benefit them, right? And so like if that's the mindset I'm always coming from, then I'm going to act genuinely, right? So if I keep that in my as my mindset and never think about what does this do for me, just what does this do for them, and is this the best decision for them, then it keeps me honest, right? Um, but also,
Wow,
you know,
that's really interesting.
right. And so the way to so one of the most effective ways to convince somebody to do something is to have them really trust you, right? And so, so I'm building transparency. I'm keeping their best interest in mind. Therefore, my actions are indicating that I'm acting on their benefit, right? Um, and also that calling out thing works too, right? If something I'm saying could be perceived as something that I could be doing for my benefit, I call that out right away, right? That's important. Anyway, uh, like for example, if I think that the more expensive house is the one for them, well, that's also in my benefit, it turns out, right? But if I genuinely think that's the better house for them, it's a better opportunity for them, well, I have to call that out now before they start demonizing me, right? This is very careful, right? Because like people can flip very quickly if they think if they think you're acting not in their interest, they will flip on you very quickly. Sorry, I'm kind of scatterbrained here, but yeah, I just keep their interest in mind, and then you act that way, and your transparency and honesty kind of builds the trust and lets you actually help them, because then you can make the decision that will benefit them, because they can't always see that decision because they don't have the experience.
You
Right?
play almost a consulting role.
Well, you should, I think. I mean, ideally.
It's not
Right?
just sales anymore. You're not
No, no, it's not like there's I think there's like levels to sales. Like there's one level where you just suck and you don't know what you're doing, right? And then there's another level where you're like you're pretty slick, you know? Like you're pretty slick. Like you know all the lines and all the things to say, and you can push product. And like those people do pretty well. And then I think there's like an elevated level. This is like some meditation like kind of mindset, right? It's like where like you don't even try to sell anymore. You just like tell them shit and like ask them questions, and then they just like intuit the decision that you intend, or something like that. It's like I don't feel like I'm ever selling when I'm doing real estate. Like I'm just like, here's the house, man. You know, like and like then they ask me questions and I'll give my honest opinion, and then they trust me enough to like sometimes they'll come to me and say, should I buy it? And I go, well, we've looked at this one, and this one, and this one. And you didn't like this because of this, and you didn't like that. And then, so then I just help them put perspective on and help them and say, so, I mean, what do you think? And then they just say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'll buy it. Right? So I'm not really selling. I'm just putting things in perspective and consulting. I think you're right. That's a good way of looking at it.
Do you enjoy what you do?
It's a good career for now. I mean, I'm good at it. Like, I'm efficient at it, for sure. It doesn't bring me like serious satisfaction. So like there's more out there. I'm not there yet.
I did some research on the real estate company that you work for, Keller Williams.
Yeah, they're pretty viral.
Yeah.
They're like they're pretty big growers.
And I've read some of the things, and some of the people are very honest in what they have to say. There was a lady who said that she quit Keller Williams, and she's kind of viral herself. She's got her own YouTube channel. And she talks a little bit about like branding and self-branding and all that. I don't know. I think it's really cool that you can captivate my attention or anybody's attention, not because of it's just because you have my best interest at heart. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess it's my style. Everybody's got a different style, and I'm not necessarily saying that people that don't have my style are bad people or something. I think everybody's got a different style.
I was going to mention asking you, what do you think about scaling? So this idea is that you jump from a particular job where you're selling or doing business at a certain level. How do you scale that in your own mind? How do you go up and like now you're selling houses, which is a bigger margin or at least money. Like how do you?
Sure. How do you scale up? I mean, so yeah, let's say like, oh, I don't know what I want to make a company that sells staplers or something like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Or is that kind of where you're going with that scaling thing? Or like?
Just what is it? Quantity. Like if you're selling a lot more.
Oh, okay. So like as a real estate agent, how you would scale? I mean, yeah, I guess the traditional model is like you build a team, right? So like you first delegate the things that can be delegated to somebody who works for low money, right? So you like your office stuff like that you can do. And then, you know, at some point you don't even have enough time to do the high skilled stuff. And so you also hire somebody to do the high skilled stuff too. And so like just to offload, and then you give, because all the leads are coming from you. So you're making the money just because you have all the connections and you're not even doing the work anymore. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that's the course over end goal. That's something I struggle with a lot because I don't think anybody will have the same standard as me, and I think that's hard for many people to scale past solo entrepreneur into like business owner, right? Is like you have to hire people and trust them that they will provide some level of service, and you also have to, by the way, accept the fact that probably in many cases they won't provide the same level of competency that you would, and you have to compensate for that, right? Now in some cases they'll provide much more competency if you get a good hire, right? Like if I get a good like administrative assistant, like who's like experienced in like, you know, that kind of thing, and scheduling and, you know, setting things up with clients and things like that, and she might innovate, and hopefully she's an innovator and she can come up with things that I can't come up with, right? Because it's not my personality type to be like detail oriented. Although I am in some ways with numbers, but like everything else, it's tough. Um, and so yeah, so if you get a good hire, you can do that, but like that takes a lot of trust,
Yeah.
and that's where my current like blockage is really is like being able to trust other people.
It's ironic
Because
because you get people to trust you, but it's very
yeah,
hard for you to
oh
trust
yeah,
others.
everybody trusts me. I trust nobody.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
On a personal level, what do you think the real estate market is like now with this whole new generation of millennials who are now looking to buy? And is it the same game that it has been over the last couple of like 20, 30 years, decades, or is it changed? What do you see?
Sure, it's relatively the same. I mean, sure, you can have your mortgages are harder to qualify for maybe, or the prices are higher, but I mean, in essence, it's brick and mortar on land, right?
Yeah.
Same shit. So, and it's susceptible to other market conditions, right? Like for example, the 2008 crash caused prices to go down. So that's been the same for 100 years, really. There's different things that do change, sure. Like, for example, 30 years ago there was only listing agents, right? So like you had to go like to just like to the house and talk to the guy who was selling the house, whereas now we have buyers representatives as well, right? So like I'm working with a client who's buying, and I take them around to like 20 different houses, right? Which is way better because now they have actually somebody with a fiduciary responsibility representing them, right? As opposed to before where they were just a customer, right? And so they're owed like duty of care, but it's not the same shit, right? If they say anything sort of incriminating in negotiations, like that information is going to get passed on to the seller, right? And people don't understand when they're saying incriminating things in a negotiation, like typically.
That's a lot.
So
That's a lot of technical, and it takes a long time for me to absorb all of that. That's a lot of information there, all at once.
sorry.
But yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, no, that's cool. That's cool. Who would you buy from
Who would I buy from? What, like as a real estate
as a
agent?
real estate? What are some
I
things?
don't like real estate agents at all. I hate them all. I really think they're all just fake as fuck. Like it drives me nuts. There's like one guy that I like. Like I've had a good experience with him. I worked on his team at one point. And it's probably just because we talk about video games together that I like have higher trust in him. He's the only other nerdy realtor I've ever met. Let's put it that way. Yeah, so it's not I am not the typical person that would get into real estate, like given my interests and background, like for sure. It just not. Yeah, so I don't have a lot in common with most of them. So that'd be tough to get me to use another realtor. Yeah.
You've answered a lot of my questions. The fielding personalities, and people enter a transaction or a sales relationship suspect that their salesman is going to be kind of trying to take advantage of them. But I don't find that about you. I think that you've done a very good job at just like streamlining what's beneficial for the both of us and having that consumer in mind and the client in mind. So
Yeah, I think that's what makes sense to me. That's how I run it. And the other thing I did was at some point. So when I started in real estate, like every real estate course that you take, like how to be a better realtor, basically is basically trying to train you in how to convince other people that you're a great real estate agent. And none of them tell you how to actually be a great real estate agent. If that makes any sense, right?
it does.
Right. So they're just like, here's how you tell them that you're amazing. So then I thought, well, this doesn't make sense. So then I just focused on actually being amazing.
And funny, people seek and they want to buy that information. They're like, please tell me how to do these things without actually understanding what they want themselves or what
Right.
is truly right for yourself or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah. Oh well, again, like this is such an impromptu conversation with the both of us. We've never really talked except for that moment 10 years ago when we hung out.
I don't remember this moment.
Dude,
You'll
I
have to
fully
forgive
walked in the
me.
house and you and Eric was like, "Hey man, this is my roommate, Danny," and
Oh,
this is
you
Alan.
walked in residence.
It was residence, yeah.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was so short. It was very short. I
He
haven't
just
really.
called him my roommate. That's amazing. I must have just been overeating a fresh pot of rice. Dude, he lured me with that rice so hard. I had, a small rural white town. Like my mom didn't know how to make rice.
Yeah.
Okay. Then this like nice Tiger rice cooker, and I'm like, oh baby, so good.
Him being a cook, that's pretty impressive. I'm sure you've had enough good experience with Chinese food. I'll take you out when we hang out, man. If we ever hang out.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How was Vegas? Things were good. Like, did you learn something from Vegas, or do you think it was just like a quick moment in life?
I learned that I have not historically been a consumer of alcohol, and so I at one time had about 5 shots in the course, 5 shots of vodka in about 30 minutes while I was down in Vegas, and I had not drank alcohol in years. Okay, and it like barely buzzed me.
Oh,
So I learned that I have a very high genetic tolerance for alcohol. Apparently, they just have some fucking alcohol-resistant gene.
the Ontario farmer blood, man.
I think it's something. Yeah, you just like got that hardy personality. I don't know. Yeah, I honestly felt like I was just the same you would feel if you were just slightly sleep deprived. That was it.
You meet some good people.
Yeah, I met some very interesting people. Well, Eric's friends are all super cool, man. They know how to party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find the same way. Feel the same way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's it, man. I think that conversation really like I'm gonna review it. I like watching my videos over again because there's a lot of things that I miss, especially when you were kind of like going through like bullet by bullet like all the things that you do, and I really appreciate spending the time to talk to us about that because like talk to me at least about it. So yeah, you accelerate my learning because otherwise I'd have to learn it on my own and it takes forever. I find conversation a good way to kind of tease out some of those things.
True. Very true.
Most people don't listen, but if you do listen, it's quite valuable.
Turns out, yeah.
Do you read?
All the time. Yeah.
What are you reading right now?
So I'll tell you a book that I finished a little while back. That if I'm going to plug a book here, it's like you should read it. It's called Getting Things Done Fast. Okay, and it is probably I read it about 6 months ago, and it's a book that has transformed me in business quite a bit. And it's basically what it does is it systematically reduces the amount of things reduces the amount of open loops you have running at any given time in your head. So like like if you're like thinking about like okay, like here's the first example, right? Just a simple one, right? Like you have a meeting on Thursday, right? So what do? You put it in your calendar so you don't have to remember it, right? Okay, so that's like the basic level. We all know how to do that, right? Now some of us don't even do that, right? We don't even have that habit, which is like because if you don't have that many appointments, you just remember them, right? And it's fine. Like okay, I got to hang out with Sandy on Thursday and then my mom on Sunday, and that's all I got, right? But like we start with the calendar things, but like then you take that for everything. Right, so I won't explain the whole book. It's worth a read. I won't do the full sale. Yeah.
Who wrote it?
Let me just.
I could probably look it up too. I just figured that you'd have it on deck.
No, I do everything like. I illegally procure all of my educational content, so I never have a physical copy of the book.
Sounds good. Sounds good, man.
Yeah.
All right, well, Daniel. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
That was quite enjoyable.
Cool. Well, I'm glad I brought your large viewership some laughs.
It's more of the recorded session is more important for me, I think. I find.
Oh, I see. Like people will watch it afterwards.
Yeah, and it's more of a personal account. Like even for you and for me, like I get to know that I've talked to some interesting people that I know.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
So now I'll just link my future, Tinder dates to this and be like, see if you like this guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, I'm taken. I'm.
No, I mean the guy.
Oh,
no, I mean me.
You. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. All
No,
right.
I'm not selling. I'm a good wingman, but I'm not that nice.
Okay, man. Sounds good. What are you guys calling with? Oh, we're calling with Facebook call. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Facebook call, so it's pretty good quality. I don't know.
Yeah, man.
Wow, I see. Look, Chrissy Bell. Do you see how disappointed? I don't know who Chrissy Bell is, but like her heart is broken now. My God, you can just see like the moment, like like this cute dude. I've been flirting with him on the chat for weeks now, and he's taken. He never told me that. This is bullshit, man.
All right, man. Hey, thanks, Ed. We'll chat offline. Thanks very much.
Cool. All right, we'll talk soon.
Cheers.
Peace.
Thanks for those who were following and listening on to the chat. That was a pretty intense call. Like, Daniel and I don't really know each other, but it was fun getting to know him and gauging him through that conversation. So thanks for joining me. Hope you learned a little bit about real estate. Not really just about real estate, but prospects and life goals and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching. Have a good night, guys.